History Inside a Nutshell, the show where we sail into our port of call discussing maritime history. In today's video, and in the spirit of Halloween, we are going to be looking into a story that involves a ship that had been adrift in the Arctic Ocean for many years. But I have to say that this story has been a very spooky one, and this one sent shivers down my spine. And basically, this research was just unbelievable. So now, in these very words, I'm going to be telling the story of the Arctic Coffin, the tragic story of the Octavius. In October 1775, a whaling ship named the Herald discovered a ship sailing adrift off the coast of Greenland. Upon her sight, the mysterious ship was in state. The cold Arctic weather had beaten the sails. They were hanging limply on their masts, tattered and torn. It must have been a spine-shivering sight for the Herald's crew. There have been known accounts about ships sailing adrift at sea, but at the time of this surprising discovery, there wasn't any technological communication. So, the crew had no clue how this mysterious ship was sailing towards theirs with no one at the wheel. When the Herald sailed towards it, the crew saw the name Octavius. Curious, the Herald's captain ordered some crew members to board the Octavius. Afterwards, a boarding party boarded the British cargo ship, and looking around the deck, they discovered that the Octavius was deserted. If there wasn't anyone aboard, what became the fate of the captain and the crew of the Octavius? The party were about to find out when they opened the hatch. Climbing down the ladder, they discovered a horrific sight. Stepping into the quarters, the party saw perfectly preserved, frozen, and motionless bodies. They were members of the Octavius's crew who had succumbed to death. When the party opened the door to the cabin, they discovered the bodies of the captain, a woman, and a child lying on a bunk bed. When the party turned their attention back to the captain, they saw he was seated at his desk with a pen inside his hand. On his desk, they saw the ship's logbook, and in horror, the terrified party saw that before he froze to death, the captain was writing an entry. The party quickly grabbed the logbook and ran back to the Herald, not wanting to stay any longer. However, the middle pages were frozen. The first and last pages were ripped from the book binding. The middle pages are lost to history. Returning to the Herald, the party who went on board the Octavius read the remaining pages that were left. They tried to figure out what happened to the captain and the crew. On one page, the frightened party read a recorded position: 75 north, 160 west. This meant that the Octavius was travelling 250 miles north of Barrow in Alaska, recorded 13 years ago. This meant that for 13 years, the Octavius had been sailing adrift with no survivors. Fearing it was cursed, the crew and the captain of the Herald left the Octavius adrift before continuing on with their journey. The Octavius hasn't been seen since. But what happened to the Octavius before she disappeared into history? While researching the events in Greenland was difficult to find, there was one clue that could give us about the Octavius's journey in 1761. It's understood that the cargo ship had travelled from London to China, where it took cargo. On board the captain and the crew of the Octavius, there was the captain's wife and son. It took him, his family, the skipper, and the crew a year to travel to China, but by the time they reached the country, the captain noticed that there had been a change in the weather and thought that rather than going home via a usual shipping route from China to London, he would take the Northwest Passage back to London instead. It isn't known which sea passage Octavius sailed when she made her journey between China and London, but it is likely that they had to travel through the Northeast Passage, since it was the route ships sailed through at the time. With the weather temperature, the captain thought taking an alternative route was a better option. Going through the Northwest Passage was risky. Everyone on the Octavius knew that they would be in a life or death situation. It's anyone's clue where they went, but Octavius must have sailed adrift in the Shaanxi Sea. Since the Shaanxi Sea is a marginal sea of the Arctic Ocean, the ship must have travelled through the Beaufort Sea before the crew, the captain, and his family met their fate. Also, it could have been possible that the ship could have entered the Arctic Circle and travelled adrift into the Greenland Sea before reaching Greenland and meeting the Herald. If this was the case, then that would have meant that the ship either took a wrong turn or got blown off course. There is a clue to how it got into its state in Greenland. The ship might have been trapped by ice, possibly by a weathered iceberg, or the sea was frozen before it broke loose. Maybe the ship got trapped by the ice, which led to all 30 deaths, or if it was another case like starvation, mutiny, etc., we will never know. The first and last pages of the logbook haven't been seen or found since the events came into light. Today, it is possible that the Octavius sank somewhere within the Arctic Circle. So, there you have it, a very spooky story. I hope that you stay safe, and I hope that you have a wonderful Halloween, and hopefully I didn't give you nightmares. If I did, sorry. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please subscribe for more historical content. Until next time, this has been History Inside a Nutshell, departing from the docks. Thank you so much for all of your support, and enjoy the rest of your voyage.